More than a century ago, the Howard Street Tunnel was the railroad gateway through Baltimore and to its port. It played a massive role in the development of our city, and today it's not doing as well as city and state leaders had hoped. ABC 2 News investigative reporter Brian Kubler takes a look at an ongoing proposal to modernize that tunnel and unleash Baltimore's potential.
As a freight train plunges into the more than century-old tunnel by Camden Yards in the south end, it pushes air through the 1.7-mile-long tube, creating a zephyr on the other end, enough to ruffle the ivy along the tunnel wall at Mount Royal Station. It then hits the face, followed shortly by the distant sound of a train's horn hitting the ear. In about 5 minutes, the CSX train will amble and sway nearly 9,000 feet underneath Baltimore's west side, eventually bursting out and past the old Mount Royal Station on its way through the city to the Port of Baltimore. The Howard Street Tunnel is still mostly the only way freight gets through the Mid-Atlantic. Antiquated and impressive, all the same.
This is 121 years old, so this really does go back to the early ages of the B&O Railroad, so it's a great piece of history here.
Train guys can geek out on stuff like this. Louis Rengel with CSX gets wrapped up in the history of this old underground thruway. But as the vice president of strategic infrastructure, he knows it's one of the oldest tunnels in the country, and its history needs a revision.
The modern, most efficient way to move goods now is by double stack clearing, and it's taking two of the tractor trailer containers you see on 95 every day and stacking one on another. And the only way to do that is to increase the clearance of this tunnel.
While the structural integrity of the tunnel, amazingly enough, is still sound, its clearance is simply too low to meet the amount of freight CSX would like to get from and to the Port of Baltimore. It's been an issue for years now. The original plan was to dig up and replace the old structure at a cost between $1 and $3 billion. But CSX realized last year it could be done a different way, by simply shaving off some of the ceiling or digging out the floor to get the clearance it needs. A method that costs significantly less, at a price tag of only $425 million. What are we looking for here?
We're looking to increase the vertical clearance by a foot.
Just 1 foot?
1 foot.
That foot is the port's Achilles heel, says Executive Director of the Maryland Port Administration, James White. Retrofitting the tunnel to fit double-stacked trains will immediately grow what the industry already ranks as the most efficient port in the country. In recent years, deep water berths to accommodate giant new ships and new giant cranes have helped, but progress continues to hit its head on a ceiling just 1 or 2 feet too short.
These bigger white cranes in the Port of Baltimore came into existence around 2013. They're meant to handle these bigger, wider ships coming through the Panama and Suez Canal. Right now, the port unloads 10 million tons of general cargo each and every year, but they can only take these cans off these ships ever so quickly.
The container business is the biggest job producer per ton than any of the other cargoes we handle. And we feel that with double stack, if we're moderately successful at it, we could grow out another 6,000 direct jobs.
From atop these new cranes, you can see how. Right now, these cans are loaded on trains one at a time and run through the tunnel. Doubling that would rev up an economic engine Governor Larry Hogan thinks is a game changer.
The port is responsible for $51 billion a year to our economy, and this could dramatically increase the production of the port. Quite frankly, I think it's transformative to not only to the Port of Baltimore, but Maryland's economy in general.
It's why after touring the tunnel last fall, Hogan recommitted $145 million from the state budget to match CSX's $125 million. What's left is $155 million needed from the federal government, a grant that was denied late last year. A setback for a transportation project the state feels was tailor-made for that federal program. Still, Hogan insists they will try again this year.
We are going to submit again. We believe that we will be successful this time. We've got a commitment from the state and from CSX already to make sure that we make this thing happen and make it a reality. Now we just need the feds to come through.
And if they are successful, it could shatter a 120-year-old stone ceiling leaders feel is holding Baltimore back. The port built this city, and now leaders hope it may once again. In Baltimore, Brian Kubler, ABC 2 News.
And just today, Governor Larry Hogan tells us that he has reached out to the new administration about the importance of this project. His office confirming that they spoke with Vice President Mike Pence. Now, if approved, the Howard Street Tunnel clearance project would take CSX about 4 to 5 years to finish.